But I think the soul of the JamFactory lies in its 4 studios, which is ceramics, glass, furniture, and the best one, which is Danielle. And its beating heart is the associate program. JamFactory is a vibrant, active place, buzzing with the energy of enthusiastic making, learning, sharing, and growing. People connecting with their passion. And it's an honour to be there. I absolutely love the energy of the building. So, and for someone who has been there and worked away and then returning to it, it felt amazing coming back into that building and in that space and feeling that energy again. So, all the makers in Small Connections are either current associates or alumni of the associate program. So we have Erin, Danielle, Polly, Daria, and Sarra. Emma Cuppleditch was going to be here today, but unfortunately she hasn't been able to make it, so she sends her apologies. So Sarra and Emma are alumni, and the current associates are Daria, Polly, and Erin. And also, I'm also a former associate. So next year is my 20th anniversary of being an associate at the JamFactory, and I can't believe it's 20 years. That's gone very quick. The title of the exhibition is an intriguing one, and each of us have explored this theme through various pathways and expressed this throughout a diverse range of materials and processes. Katherine Grocott, whose work is beautifully displayed over here, Madison. You did a fantastic job of Katherine's work. So easy. It's beautiful work, so it's easy to work. It does make it easy when you're given beautiful work. This is true. Katherine has translated her take on physical distancing, which wasn't a thing just over a year ago. And I was just writing an email to someone and reading it and going, if I'd read this email 18 months ago, I would have been like, you must be bonkers. What are you talking about? So many new words and concepts and ideas of how to connect with each other have arisen in the last 18 months. So Katherine's working with 3D printing with nylon and then colouring it with dyes. The pivot points represent people and are held apart when wearing this piece, but taking it off highlights the hazards of close contact, and these points risk touching each other, I'll speak about the works of the people who are not here, and then I'll pass over to the associates and alumni so they can talk about their own works. So the next person I have is Danny's work, which is represented here, and she has a number of pieces on the other side here. Barrie is Danielle Barrie. Is our production manager and hails from South Africa. And here she is responding to memories of her childhood garden. Last year she couldn't attend a family wedding held in the same garden which she grew up in and watched it via the internet. Her childhood memory of a wild space of fairies and dreams did not match the plainer, well-kept garden now before her. Danny likes to play with binaries in her work, and she has continued with this with her pieces. Gretal's work is just here. Gretal Ferguson's work, titled Stitch, unites the traditions of silversmithing and textiles, exploring the gendered roles of these crafts. By combining the traditionally male-dominated craft of silversmithing with hand stitching, a feminine craft. Though the metal components are vital to the work, it is the silk that holds many of these objects together. The silk is structural, not just decorative, and a great analogy for women today. But the jewellery is good to decorate. Zoe Grigoris has made she uses the heart motif in her work. She employs a fluttering of these iconic love heart motifs in her work and as a nod to jewellery's role in the exchange of love and affection. So very sweet works. They move quite beautifully when you wear them and catch the light in different directions. It's quite sweet. Emma Cuppleditch has the very colourful sparkling earrings and pendants behind you. So the title of these works is It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want To. It references all the parties, gatherings and celebrations that didn't happen because of lockdowns. And of course, there would have been many cancellations in Victoria for this weekend. So it's quite a joyful nod to the things that didn't happen last year and continuing. So I might pass over to Sarra. If you'd like to speak about your work, then Daria, we'll go Holly, and then Erin after that. So,
I'd like to sit down, if that's okay.
go for it.
So my works are 5 net pieces. They're kind of scattered around. There's 3 on this table in ceramic. 2 in ceramic here, 1 in ceramic up on the very top there. And then there's the 2 here which are made from mushroom. Just a little bit about my practice. I am an Indian Australian artist and I make objects, jewellery and sculpture. So this work is quite experimental for me. I made the ceramic pieces while I was in the desert in Ernabella, Pukaja. And they came out of my stay there, and it was kind of a response to the environment and the way that the artists were working in the art centre in Pukaja. And they predominantly work with ceramics and painting. So I kind of adopted similar processes and techniques that they were using there and translated that into my own aesthetic and kind of played with the porcelain and the raku, and then I ended up with these pieces. And for me it was kind of like a bit of like free time or kind of spontaneous playtime, I guess. And I kind of like working in that way where I'm allowing myself to just see what comes out of an experience and kind of welcome other people's knowledge and processes. So those were the 3 that kind of came first, the porcelain pieces. And then recently I've been working with a designer in Adelaide called Jake Shaw, and he grows this mushroom material. It's quite interesting, mycelium. So he makes quite large furniture pieces out of this material, and I've kind of engaged him to grow the product for me, the material for me, and use that in the same way as I was using the porcelain, and just kind of like restructure it and see what happens. And that's what came out of that. So those have actually been burnt, which is why they're black. But the material I'm still kind of experimenting with, and yeah, it's kind of we'll see what happens. But that's kind of the exploration of those new materials.
Were you an artist in residence, or was it just a holiday? Or did you take yourself
in
up to
Pukaja?
Yeah.
I was first doing a workshop. That was the first time that I went. So it was to deliver a ceramic jewellery workshop. And then 2 times after, I was employed as a studio manager. Yeah.
Should we move along? We'll have questions at the end maybe, or feel free to jump in.
Hi everyone, so I'm Daria. My work is on the back wall there, a couple of chains and larger earrings, and then on this platform down here, the 2 kind of textural black rings, and the silver vessel on the wooden base on that back table there. So my practice is largely influenced by my cultural heritage, which is Italian. So my mum came in from Italy, and we grew up with a lot of rituals to protect people from the evil eye and things like that. So I try to kind of have a nod to my grandparents and their beliefs and the beliefs from their villages through my work. And I try to incorporate that with symbols, with the numbers of the pieces, like on the earrings, the 3 hanging elements, so 3's come up quite a lot. And I really try to focus on textural surface finishes. And in some of the black rings, which have been made from wax model, I've left the impression of my fingerprints on that. The bowl at the back is a ritual vessel. So in the evil eye removal ritual, would fill that with water and drop some oil into that, and that would determine whether you've been cursed with the evil eye or not, and then a ritual will be performed by a woman in the family to remove that from you. So yeah, those influences come through, and I try to interpret that in my own way. Yeah.
Oh, at the end, yeah.
most partly I'm a current associate, that was already mentioned. I've got 9 pieces in this exhibition. So the 3 little brooches sitting on the top of that box over there, the 2 pendants at the back with the tube, yep, and a couple of 2 other brooches and a couple of rings over there. So these pieces come from a series of mine called This Mess, which really, I've always been interested in waste and recycling and have a hoarding background, so I find it really hard to deal with plastics and single-use plastics. And these pieces sort of stemmed from a visit to Tokyo, and I went to the fish markets there, and we were walking through the fish markets, and I just saw this enormous mountain of polystyrene foam boxes, and there was a forklift just pushing them up into this hill, and little balls were flying as pieces were breaking apart, and it was kind of my biggest phobia and fears all rolled into one of how this material just gets used once and then is thrown away. And this was a few hours of the fish market, this enormous mountain, and this is happening every single day, and it's really difficult to recycle. So these pieces, half of them are silver, they're cast from polystyrene forms, which I've moulded, and half of them are electroformed polystyrene. So I started off with the silver pieces and was enjoying that process, but they're really heavy and they're a big chunk of silver. So I didn't feel it was quite capturing my concerns about the material. So I got onto this process of electroforming, which is essentially, I still form the pieces in the same way initially, but then electroforming is the process of running an electrical current through a bath, and then the copper is placed onto the top of the polystyrene and builds up a layer. So the polystyrene is encased within, sort of entombing the waste and making it a more permanent artifact, and trying to sort of a value statement of why we are just making this material and disposing of it. So this is kind of keeping it there forever, and it's also very light, so it looks quite heavy and big and bulbous, but it's really deceptive and light, which is something I really enjoyed in the process. So yeah, I've got a mixture of those materials. Yeah, that's my current exploration.
Thank you, Erin.
My name's Erin Daniell, and my work is behind us here. The floral built amazing pieces there, and some kind of at the back there that are heirloom pieces with pearls. So last year, when we kind of started the associate program, and then we restarted this year, was looking at the way objects hold connections to memory and to people. So really thinking about my connection with family and wanting to create some pieces that kind of honoured my family, because I'm always thinking about who is that piece made for, and you know how we can use objects to kind of hold identity and hold meaning. And last year, you know, was a tough year for everyone, but also my adoptive mother was going through chemotherapy. So that was quite a big year for us. And so thinking about how important those memories are that we have for family. So I was looking at kind of using mother of pearl. Well, it's acrylic, but it's mimicking the mother of pearl that you see in a lot of kind of older pieces of jewellery, and then looking at the pearl in my heirloom pieces, which again kind of references, you know, the 1950s pearls were very in, and you know, were worn in my grandparents' weddings and that sort of thing. So really looking at the way these pieces are holding those memories and kind of connecting us to, you know, the ones we love and memories of better times. So, yeah.
And my work, which is just here, which is handy. This is a new direction in my work. So for 20 years I've been working with PVC and transforming it from a mundane, prosaic material into a more precious material through very simple handmade processes. So I'm wearing one of my bangles at the moment. It appears to be a bit glass-like, but it's soft and it's hand-carved. So my practice has been focused on that for quite some time, and I've developed a strong love of plastics, but I think they're not valued correctly. And in 2019, I think we need to really assess our values, how we value it. But in 2019, I was awarded a Guildhouse Collections project, which was a partnership with the Adelaide Botanic Gardens. And my project was to go into the State Herbarium's collection and study the marine algae collection they have there, which was amazing. It blew my mind. When I first walked into the State Herbarium, on the wall, there was this big frame with a Pyphora in there, and it was very much like this large piece of cellophane. It was like my wingspan, so 1.5 meters, one single piece, very thin and filmy, and its tiny holdfast, which connected it to a rock or coral. And straight away seeing that, you get the sense of the environment that it grew in. It was calm waters, it was gentle, peaceful, sheltered, and for it to grow like that. So I just liked how those connections between the marine algae and how it grew, you could tell where it was growing. I also became involved with, or really excited about epiphytes, which I really didn't know much about before. So when you're looking at the specimens under the microscope of marine algae, seaweed, you see the specimen, the main specimen, why it's been collected, but then there are lots of other ones growing on there as well. And they're epiphytes, and it's different to like a parasite or a symbiotic relationship. There's no exchange of nutrients or anything like that. It's just, they're just hosting one another. And I really liked that relationship of just creating a nice place for something else to flourish. I love that connection, and it really had an impact on me about how I connect and how I value and making spaces around me for things to grow. So I started playing. Oh, the other thing when I was looking at the specimens was that I kept interpreting them as plastics. Because a lot of the marine algae do look very plasticky. And so I was thinking cellophane and glad wrap and lollipop sticks and flocking, and there's just such a diverse array of how these life forms grow and look like. So for the first time I actually opened up by material base and started including lollipop sticks and cellophane and cling wrap and playing with all sorts of things. It was a lot of fun, but this work is what's resulted from it. So I've referenced specimens that I've seen and documented, and then recreating them and having them as epiphytes where numerous pieces are growing off of one another. But, and then this piece is actually the first time I've made a piece that has no PVC in it. It's actually a big step for me. So I've been quite involved with PVC for a long time. And when I made that piece, I'm like, that's done. I actually had this moment of like, there's no PVC in it. Like, it's, yeah, but yeah, so that's where I've come through with my work.